Everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be playing around with watercolours and doing some watercolour mark making. So I was inspired by this, by, the stuff that comes across Facebook and Instagram shorts and so on. And it's basically doing a weaving pattern with watercolours. So I grabbed out a pack of watercolours I had and I thought I'd have a go. So it wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. Um, I'm not sure whether it was the colours I used or I didn't leave it to dry long enough in between. I just, I didn't get the nice crisp pattern that I was expecting to get, and that's okay because it was an experiment. I have to admit, it does look better on screen than it did when I was doing it in person, so maybe just a bit of hindsight works well for it. So the watercolors I'm using are a whole range of handmade watercolors I've purchased from different Etsy groups and so on. So don't ask me where I got them from because they're a mixed bag, as they say, but they are a lot of neon colors, which are my favorites. So I decided I would just have a go and see how it went. So it's funny actually looking at this now. It was a bit more successful than I thought it was when I was doing it. But it did tend to get a bit blocky and it did sort of wash out those colours at the end. You don't get the nice sort of gingham pattern, I suppose, that I was expecting to get. So once I had finished doing that, I decided I would keep going with my watercolours, but I'd switch. These are Jane Davenport Sweet Treats palette, apparently, because it's on there. These ones are more like a gouache than a watercolour, so they're obviously water activated. We're just that little bit more opaque, which is what I wanted to sort of paint over the top. And I have had a good deal of success when I've used paints like this before to get more sort of like bold mark making over the top. I've also used them over the top of acrylic paints, so I don't know if it's just the Jane Davenport ones or if it's every goulash gouache that you can use over the top, but I've had some success with that, which is good. So I'm just, taking my time, doing a bit of doodling, adding in all the different layers that I want to over the top. As I was playing around with this, I was also thinking what sort of pens and so on will go over the top of this as well. Now, paint pens usually work. I have not been very consistent in my studio recently. Usually I'm in my studio every night. My paint pens, particularly on white and black, are used every night. And I have found that if I don't use my pens every day, they get a little bit temperamental with me. So I actually had to start a new pen, which is why this is now working. It will still go over the top of the gouache and the watercolor okay. You just need to make sure it's fairly dry. If you hit any wet patches, it will sort of not work as well as you want it to. But I just wanted some contrast to that black. I then decided I wanted a bit of sprinkle, so I got the metallics out and I spritzed those over the top, managed to cover everything in the kitchen sink with it. Then I got some of the neon yellows over the top as well. Absolutely nothing to stop you doing this with different media. I just wanted to play around with watercolor because that's what I had. So on the other side, I'd poured out a little bit too much water into some of my pots, and before I closed up my watercolors, I want to dry them out a little bit. So I'm just using up the excess paint, and then because I like the background, I continued adding water, which kind of defeated the purpose. But I thought I would just do some random mark making. So again, everything works the same really. I'm doing exactly the same as I would do with my acrylic paints. I'm doing with my watercolors. So where, for marks like this, I might use my paint pens. I'm just using the acrylic, the watercolors over the top. So you can see those metallics look really beautiful. Then I'm even using the same symbols and the same sort of mark making I would use in my regular journals. You just get a slightly different effect because you're using a slightly different medium. So if there is something that you like doing, try it in a few different media and see what medium you like it in the best. Um, I often forget that I don't mind using watercolors. I'm very much an acrylic girl because I like the permanence of it. Once it's dried, and I can layer over it. However, with watercolors, you can also layer over it if you're careful. You can certainly put acrylic paints over it, but even you can add in watercolor as well to get those sort of layered effects. Once I was leaving one background to dry, I went back to the other one. It's quite often why I like working in small journals when I've just got a few minutes spare, because I can sort of work on both sides at the same time, have two completely different pages. I'm using the same watercolors, the same color sort of palettes slightly, but I'm going to end up with two completely different pages. And I always like how that ends up. It's one of the reasons why I really love teaching classes, because you can give everyone the same instructions and every single one's still going to be different, no matter whatever you do. Something's always going to be a bit different. So with that really brightly coloured one on the other side, I decided to do a little bit of collage over the top of it. I had some very funky girls. These are from Natalie May Scrapbooking. Is it Cocktail Time or Cocktail Girl, something like that, Cocktail Hour. They're very, very brightly coloured, which I really loved, and the background on it itself was quite brightly coloured, so I figured that just putting on a brightly coloured background would work. I just wanted to put a bit of a border on it, just to make it slightly different from the other side, and quite often when I'm doing collages, I do tend to put a border on. It's a hangover from my old days of collaging, I think. Then I'm just going in with white pen and doing a bit of a dash border on it. So I like that sort of black and white stripe effect, and this is one of the quickest ways to do it. So sitting there and trying to get all your stripes equal, just do dashes. So once I've done that, then I am putting on my gel medium. Now you will notice I'm applying this slightly differently to how I would usually do it, which is just apply the gel medium to the page. But obviously gel medium is a wet medium. If I slathered that over the page like I usually do, I would activate all my watercolors underneath. So I've actually applied it off a page. You'll also notice I did two coats. I did the first coat just to seal the image. So it meant that when the wet gel medium went on, it wouldn't reactivate the watercolors underneath and make them bleed through. So just be aware when you're working with different medium, you do have to remember what are some of the rules about them. So here are the two completed pages. Started off in the same way, went two completely different ways, and end up with two completely different journal pages. But it was a fun day playing with watercolors and grabbing out some materials I haven't used in a while. I hope this inspires you to have a look at your materials, and until next time, bye for now.